You don't know what you're doing!
The HOA destroyed my family's stone marker. They didn't know what was buried beneath it. At 6:11 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of stone breaking. Not construction. Not a truck. Stone. My phone was vibrating on the nightstand. Motion detected east property line. I opened the security camera. And my stomach dropped. An excavator was sitting on my family's property. Its bucket was smashing into the old limestone marker that had stood there for nearly 80 years. 3 men in work jackets were loading broken pieces into a trailer. And standing behind them, completely calm, was the president of our HOA. She wasn't trying to stop them. She was watching. Smiling. I threw on a jacket and ran outside. By the time I reached the field, half the marker was already gone. Stop. The excavator froze. The HOA president slowly turned toward me. She checked her watch. Then she smiled. You're earlier than I expected. I stared at her. Earlier than you expected. She walked toward me like she owned the place. We had to remove this structure today. I pointed at the shattered limestone. That structure has been on my family's land since 1947. She shrugged. Not according to our records. She pulled a folder from her vehicle. Inside was an old survey map. She unfolded it across the hood of her SUV. A red line crossed directly through my family's property. According to that map, the HOA owned almost 40 feet more land than every modern survey I'd ever seen. I looked at her. Where did you get this? County records. Something immediately felt wrong. Because my family had paid for multiple professional surveys over the years. None of them showed this boundary. I stepped closer. Who authorized the demolition? The HOA board. The HOA doesn't own this property. Her smile disappeared. That's what we're here to correct. Then she pointed toward the excavator. Finish the foundation. The machine started moving again. I stepped directly in front of it. Nobody touches that foundation. The operator stopped. The HOA president stared at me. Then she said something I'll never forget. You really don't know what's under there, do you? For the first time, she looked nervous. Not angry. Nervous. Before I could answer, an old county sedan came flying down the road. It stopped beside us. An elderly man stepped out carrying a battered leather case. He walked straight toward the destroyed marker. He didn't even look at the HOA president. He crouched beside one of the broken stones. His fingers brushed across an old carving. His face went pale. They broke it? I asked him who he was. He stood slowly. Dr. Walter Hayes. County Historical Records. The HOA president immediately stepped forward. This is private HOA business. Dr. Hayes looked at the excavator. Then at the rubble. Then at her. Turn the machine off. She laughed. You have no authority over this project. Dr. Hayes opened his leather case. He removed an old photograph. It showed the exact same stone marker. But there was something else in the photograph. My great-grandfather. A county survey crew. And several government officials standing beside the stone. Dr. Hayes placed the photograph beside the broken pieces. This isn't an HOA structure. The president's face changed. It is a legally recorded boundary marker. One of the workers immediately shut down the excavator. The HOA president snapped at him. Turn it back on. He didn't move. Dr. Hayes opened his case again. This time, he removed a document sealed inside protective plastic. The paper was yellow and brittle. I looked at it. "What is that?" Dr. Hayes looked at me. "The original land agreement." I shook my head. "We already have the deed." "This isn't the deed." He looked toward the destroyed foundation. "It's the agreement that explains why your great-grandfather was ordered to put that marker here." My heart started pounding. "Why?" Dr. Hayes lowered his voice. "Because someone was trying to change the property boundary." The entire work crew went silent. The HOA president stepped forward. "That's enough." Dr. Hayes ignored her. "Don't let them remove another stone." I stared at the broken foundation. "What are you saying is under there?" He looked directly at me. "Evidence." The HOA president suddenly went completely pale. And that's when I realized something. She hadn't destroyed that marker because she thought it was ugly. She hadn't destroyed it because the HOA wanted better landscaping. She knew exactly what that stone represented. And she desperately wanted it gone. The first lie. I confronted her. "You knew." "I knew nothing." Dr. Hayes pointed toward the construction plans lying on a nearby truck. "The original plans don't call for this marker to be removed." He unfolded the blueprint. "In fact, they're supposed to preserve it." I looked at the foreman. "Then who changed the order?" He hesitated. Finally, he pulled a folded sheet of paper from his jacket. "The HOA gave us revised instructions yesterday." "Who signed them?" He looked at the HOA president. "She did." "She immediately denied it?" "But the paper had her signature." Then Dr. Hayes noticed something printed on the back. A county archive reference number. He stared at it for several seconds. Then his expression changed. "Where did you get this?" The foreman pointed toward the HOA office. Dr. Hayes shook his head. "This reference number belongs to a file that disappeared more than 20 years ago." Nobody spoke. I looked at the HOA president. "How did you get a reference number from a missing file?" She had no answer. Then the attorney who had been sitting inside her SUV finally stepped out. He walked toward us. "Perhaps everyone should calm down." Dr. Hayes smiled. "No." The attorney stopped. "We're past calming down." The brass key. The sheriff arrived shortly afterward. After reviewing the old documents, he ordered everyone away from the foundation. The HOA president protested. "This is an approved development project." The sheriff looked at the destroyed marker. "Maybe." Then he pointed at the foundation. "But nobody digs another inch until we know what this is." The HOA president suddenly became calm. Too calm. She got into her SUV and drove away. I watched her disappear down the road. Something didn't feel right. She had spent the entire morning fighting us. Why would she suddenly leave? Dr. Hayes answered before I asked. "She's not giving up." "What is she doing?" "Changing tactics." That evening, I returned to the property. The construction equipment was gone. Police tape surrounded the broken marker. I walked toward the foundation. That's when I saw something sticking out of the dirt. A small brass object. I pulled it free. It was a key. Attached to it was a rusted metal tag. 4 words were still visible. "Archive Box 17 Basement." I immediately called Dr. Hayes. He answered on the first ring. When I told him what I'd found, he went silent. Then he said, "Do not go to the archive." "Why?" His voice dropped. "Because Box 17 wasn't reported missing." I froze. Then where is it? Someone checked it out. When? 6 days ago. Who? Another silence. Then he gave me the name. The HOA president. My hands tightened around the key. Suddenly, headlights appeared at the edge of my property. A vehicle stopped. It didn't move. It just watched me. Then the lights disappeared. I called Dr. Hayes again. How would they know I found the key? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, because that key was never supposed to be under your monument. I looked down at the brass key. What do you mean? It was sealed inside the county archive decades ago. My blood ran cold. Then how did it get here? I don't know. Then let's find out. Box 17. The next morning, before sunrise, Dr. Hayes and I entered the county records basement. Rows of shelves disappeared into darkness. Old surveys. Property deeds. Court orders. Land agreements. Thousands of boxes. Dr. Hayes led me directly to one section. Boxes 14. 15, 16. Then an empty space. Where's 17? He stared at the shelf. That's the problem. He opened the archive ledger. There it was. Box 17, Carter Land Agreement Restricted. And beneath it was a signature. The ink was fresh. The HOA president had signed it out days before the monument was destroyed. I stared at the empty shelf. So she knew. Dr. Hayes nodded. She knew exactly what was under that stone. But why destroy it if she already had the file? Dr. Hayes didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a huge survey book. He opened it to a map dated 1947. My family's property was clearly marked. The HOA development didn't exist. Then he showed me another boundary drawn decades later. A handwritten note appeared beside it, transfer pending, do not record. I felt a chill. What does that mean? Dr. Hayes looked at me. It means someone tried to transfer part of your family's land. Did they succeed? No. Then how is the HOA using it? That's what we need to prove. Then we heard a sound. Clang. Both of us froze. The basement lights went out. Footsteps echoed between the shelves. Slow. Heavy. Getting closer. Dr. Hayes whispered, "Don't move." A flashlight appeared at the end of the aisle. A man stepped into view. He wasn't wearing a county uniform. He wasn't HOA staff. And he was carrying box 17. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "Put that box down." The man smiled. Instead, he opened it. He pulled out an old document. My family's name was written across the top. Then he said, "You're looking for the land agreement." I nodded. He unfolded the paper. "Then you should know something." He pointed to another signature. "Your great-grandfather wasn't the only person who signed this." Dr. Hayes went pale. "Who?" The stranger smiled. "Someone from the county." He pulled out another page. The signature was dated 1947. Dr. Hayes stared at it. "You recognize him?" "Yes." "Who was he?" Dr. Hayes swallowed. "The county commissioner." I frowned. "So?" Dr. Hayes looked at me. "His daughter later founded the HOA." My stomach dropped. Before I could ask another question, the lights came back on. The man was gone. So was box 17. Only one page remained on the floor. I picked it up. There was a handwritten sentence at the bottom. The stone was never the secret. Dr. Hayes, read the next line. The secret was who changed the map. He looked at me. We've been investigating the wrong crime. The courtroom. 3 days later, we went to court. This time, I wasn't alone. Dr. Hayes had assembled the original survey, historical photographs, payment records, and the remaining land documents. My mother brought another piece of evidence. A document that had been hidden in our family's records for decades. The HOA president was already sitting beside her attorney. She looked completely confident. She smiled at me. You really think you're going to win this? I placed the evidence case on the table. You destroyed my family's property. Her attorney immediately objected. Unauthorized structure. Dr. Hayes stood. Historical boundary marker. He placed the original photograph before the judge. Then the 1947 survey. Then the modern HOA map. The judge studied both. Her expression changed. Why don't these boundaries match? The HOA attorney tried to explain it away. Historical surveying wasn't always precise. Dr. Hayes shook his head. These aren't measurement differences. He placed another document on the table. Someone changed the legal reference. Then came the payment ledger. Several payments. All connected to the same development family. The same family that had created the subdivision. The same family that later became involved with the HOA, and the same family currently negotiating the sale of the entire neighborhood. The judge looked at the attorney. Are you connected to this development company? He hesitated. Yes. And are you representing the HOA during its sale? Another hesitation. Yes. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Then my mother's evidence was presented. The original land agreement required signatures from both surviving landowners. There was only one. The judge looked at my mother. Did you sign this transfer? No. Did your father? No. The judge turned toward the attorney. Then how was the transfer recorded? Nobody answered. The prosecutor placed another document on the table. A replacement survey. Dated 1979. Prepared by a private surveying company connected to the same development family. Then Dr. Hayes placed two photographs side by side. The original monument. And the monument decades later. The stone itself hadn't moved. The land reference had. The map had been altered around the stone. The judge stared at the evidence. So the boundary marker wasn't moved. Dr. Hayes nodded. The map was. The courtroom went silent. Then the HOA president suddenly stood. I didn't know. I turned toward her. You knew enough to destroy it? She looked at her attorney. Then back at me. I was told the marker had to disappear before the sale. Who told you? She hesitated. Then pointed toward her own attorney. The attorney immediately stood. That's not true. Her voice cracked. You told me the buyer would walk away if the old boundary dispute was discovered. The judge ordered everyone to sit. The attorney's face had gone white. Then the prosecutor revealed the final document. A purchase agreement for the entire neighborhood. One condition stood out. No unresolved historical property claims. The attorney had known. The HOA had known. And they had tried to destroy the physical evidence before the sale. The verdict. The judge finally delivered her decision. The original boundary remained legally protected. The HOA had no authority to remove the marker. No authority to alter the boundary. And no authority to build on the disputed portion of my family's land. The development project was immediately suspended. The unauthorized construction had to be removed. The damaged marker had to be restored. The HOA's property records were ordered to undergo a full audit. And the sale of the entire neighborhood was frozen. But the judge wasn't finished. She ordered the evidence turned over for a broader investigation into the altered records. The HOA president sat silently. Her confidence was gone. Her attorney wouldn't even look at her. 3 months later, the stone marker stood again. Not a replacement. The original stone. Every broken piece had been carefully restored. The county installed a small protective marker beside it. Dr. Hayes personally supervised the restoration. I stood beside him. I finally asked the question that had been bothering me from the beginning. Why was this stone so important? He placed his hand against the weathered limestone. Because sometimes history isn't stored in a courthouse. He smiled. Sometimes it's sitting in the ground. The HOA development was halted. The disputed construction was removed. The planned sale collapsed. The HOA president resigned. The board was replaced. And the county opened a formal investigation into the altered property records. But there was still one thing I didn't understand. A week after the hearing, Dr. Hayes gave me a small envelope. Inside was an old photograph. My great-grandfather stood beside the original stone marker in 1947. Next to him was the county commissioner. On the back, my great-grandfather had written a message. 6 words. If they ever move this line. Dr. Hayes turned the photograph over. There was another sentence beneath it. The stone will remember. I walked back to the restored marker. For almost 80 years, everyone had thought it was just an old piece of limestone. The HOA called it an eyesore. The developers called it an obstacle. To everyone else, it was just a stone. But my family knew what it really was. Proof. And ironically, the moment the HOA tried to destroy that proof, they exposed everything they had spent decades trying to hide. I placed my hand against the same weathered stone my great-grandfather had touched nearly 80 years earlier. And finally, I understood what he had been protecting. It wasn't the land. It wasn't the monument. It was the truth.